Hey, welcome back, everyone. I have Sierra Smith from Sun Peak Official back for our weekly chat. And today we're going to kind of talk about scaling back and fine tuning. And we're also going to discuss a recent trip that she just went on. So, welcome back, Sierra.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one because I kind of talk about it, quite a bit on how I've made, a lot of mistakes in the beginning of my journey. And, sometimes the vision and the goal changes also in the process. And you have to evaluate things and, see what you're doing, if it's the right thing to do and if you're heading down the right path. And I've been speaking with, some of my tax advisors and legal people, and I'm gonna probably change course on some of the things I set up when I first got started, like some business entities and whatnot. But yeah, do you have any experience with this?
Sure. I feel like this is really common with anyone who is ambitious, because you kind of get that bigger vision first, and then when it comes to, um, executing the process, then you start to really realize like what's working and what's not working, and you do kind of start to fine tune like, okay, this is where I'm having some success. Maybe I should work on maximizing my return there versus like trying to build all of these different um things or spread yourself too thin. And it kind of gives you, but you kind of need the feedback first before you can really even fine tune or scale back. And you kind of put all like, and when you're ambitious, you kind of put all the feelers out there at the beginning. And um and you're learning so much that once you start to like master that learning curve, you can kind of have that hindsight or that 2020 vision where you're like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to see the elements of what I'm doing that I like or don't like, and then yeah, kind of adjust as needed.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that when, like you said, when you first get started, you have all of these kind of goals and aspirations, and you kind of have this dream or vision. And that's kind of where I was when I first got started. I'm gonna get this huge portfolio of investments and rental properties, and I want to scale to this much, and this is how much cash flow I wanted. And so, when I first got started, I set up some business structures that, at the time, I was thinking this is going to be tax beneficial, build business credit and whatnot. And now, a few years into it, I realized that, I probably put too many things on my plate in the beginning. And, I kind of got ahead of myself, and it probably actually slowed me down quite a bit.
So I know a lot of people say, to have that clear vision of that end goal so you can work yourself backwards and set up these things to get you to that end goal. Do you feel like you wish you'd just taken it one step at a time and not had a goal in mind? Or do you still feel like it was helpful to be dreaming of that big portfolio to get you like further down the line?
I think what would have helped me better was if I spoke to other investors first about it. I think that's where I got ahead of myself, where I had a vision and I saw this plan, but I think what would have helped me out a lot more is if I spoke with other people that have done it or are doing it, and what challenges they may have had. As far as, I mean, I spoke to a lot of people that were investing in rental properties, but as
Mhm.
far as trying to set up these business structures and business credit, that's kind of, maybe I kind of was looking into that on my own, or trying to go that route, from my own, research, where maybe if I reached out to other people, they could have, pointed me in a better direction, or the pros and cons of what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as personally, like I do feel like I get sidetracked easily with, anything new that I'm learning. Like, big, okay, let's get a rental property. And then it's like, oh, well, maybe we should value add and flip a property, or maybe we should, do a different kind of strategy and just wanting, like, sometimes I start those strategies and then decide like, oh, I better pull back and not do, stick with what I know. And because it's a lot to figure out unless you have someone like specifically guiding and coaching you like the way that they did it. And I don't feel like it's easy to find that like legal and tax advice like it is the strategies, because people are very hesitant to share their legal and tax advice with other people online.
What I realized though is like for the legal and tax, your advisor is still kind of working off of the information you're giving them, right? So,
Mhm.
even though I may have told them, yeah, this is my vision, so they gave me the best advice, based off of the information that I was giving them. So
True.
it's kind of not saying it's my fault, but if I had a better vision or better understanding of what I wanted to do, then that probably would have helped me from not going down this path where, I was probably doing some things that don't really benefit me too much. Like the entity that I set up probably doesn't provide me any tax benefits at this moment. And now that I look at where I'd have to get for me to provide these tax benefits, that's probably not my vision or goal anymore. So
Hmm.
that's why I'm in the process. I'm going to dissolve that entity and kind of streamline things and simplify things and kind of clean things up a little bit. So that's also why I'm kind of glad the market has kind of slowed down, and
Yeah.
it's giving me a chance to breathe and kind of clean up some other areas. And that's kind of why I'm really focusing too on social media, because the market has slowed down quite a bit. And you can find deals out there, but they're just not as readily available as before. And now
Hmm.
that's kind of
And
why
it
I'm
doesn't feel
focused.
like as urgent right now to try to get the
Yeah,
next deal because it's
yeah,
not, yeah, financially, it's not as beneficial.
yeah. And
Um,
I think we talked about that too, though, how you're not always buying properties, like, right? It's not
right.
that easy where, oh, you just have all this money. Oh, I'm going to get my next property. And there's time in between where you're doing other types of work.
Right. Yeah. And maximizing on that, like what you're doing. Like, we talked about, I think off camera the other day, like switching, I was talking about switching the platform that I collect rent on to, something a little bit cheaper that was since we self-manage our rental property, maybe doing something like that so that either I wouldn't have to raise the rent as much, or that if I did raise the rent, I would have better margins. And so just like even strategizing on that front while there's less, more time, not looking for deals that but I was going to say too, I saw on Instagram there's a difference, I guess, between a tax strategist and a tax preparer, and that you can even get like someone who just will strategize with you with your scenario to kind of set you up to know what kind of tax preparer you need and what things to take advantage of. So I think that is something that would be really beneficial if you are a new investor and don't have someone who is specifically leading you down that path of what entity to set up. But yeah, you still have to have a kind of a vision for your future, or know where you're headed in order to set things up um, for the most ideal scenario.
Yeah, it's actually great you bring that up because I think, me growing up, a lot of people, your focus is getting your taxes in on time, making sure
Mhm.
everything is set up properly and paying by a certain date. I mean, that's kind of how I grew up, my mentality. But what you realize is when you start, getting into rental properties or entrepreneurship or, having your own business, then you start looking at things differently. And these tax strategists is where people that you're going to communicate with to achieve a certain goal. And like you said, a tax preparer is more someone to you're going to give them these documents, and they're just going to get your taxes done and file it on time. Where a
Mhm.
tax strategist, you might bring up, hey, this is what I want to accomplish. This is my goal. I want to have this done, on my returns. So how can we accomplish that? And I think that's the big difference.
Yeah, for sure. And, someone who specializes in real estate, I would love to talk to someone where I could say, like, our goal is to offset some W-2 income. And while I have a business, I could also probably qualify as a real estate professional because we self-manage and, we're trying to turn our, part of our primary residence into an Airbnb, and like, tell me exactly what to log on my bookkeeping, so that I am making sure that we are set up for that. And yeah, someone who can just kind of walk through all of those um, different avenues to make sure that you're having the most advantageous tax situation.
Yeah, I mean that's the hardest thing, right? Like taxes, like they talk about, is probably the biggest expense you're going to incur in your lifetime, right? All the taxes that you have to pay. So trying to minimize that is going to benefit you greatly in the long run. And you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier too about, fine tuning and the platforms that you're on and how to succeed that
Mm.
way. And even like I said, I made tons of mistakes. I'm trying to scale back, and that's kind of the struggle I have too with social media is should you be on all these different platforms or should you scale back and focus on a few?
Yeah, so as far as, if you're it depends on what your goal is, of course, the advice, but if your goal is to, turn social media into a passive form of income, then you could focus my advice as from a marketing perspective would be to focus your effort on whichever um platform you feel like is either going to give you the best return or that you feel like you're the best at. So if that's making a podcast, then really grow your following on your podcast, and you don't have to have all of the every single platform. If you're selling a product, then you're probably going to be on TikTok because their features to push products and purchase through the app are beating out a lot of the other platforms. But if you're, on, doing a podcast, then you might want to focus on, your podcast and YouTube. Or if you are wanting to just monetize, like because you like news information, or then you're going to be on X, probably, providing educational content. And then I know like LinkedIn is getting more and more popular as far as if you're trying to find like clients or put your work out there and get connected with people, then a lot of people are saying that LinkedIn, as far as social media, is great for that. So I think the biggest advantage that people don't realize is that if you really focus on one and build your following there, then you don't really have to build the following on all of the other platforms because your following will already be there, and they will automatically want to engage with you on those other platforms. So it kind of means you only have to build it once versus starting on all of the platforms and wanting to grow them all. And then you're kind of building almost like 4 or 5 different audiences versus one that will follow you everywhere you go.
Yeah, for me so far, I like X. I don't know. I think I've the most engagement and I've met more people on X.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, I just feel like I'm always underdressed. Like every time I go there, it's like everyone's in suits and they're all business attire and yeah, and everyone's trying to sell something, seems like in my messages. But
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, yeah, trying to raise capital for an investment or their next fund or next deal. But X seems to be, I don't know, the most interaction and people I relate. Instagram's fun too, but TikTok I haven't
Mm-hmm.
figured out. So, but like you said, yeah, I mean, I try to post on most platforms, but there's definitely a few that I'm more focused on, and hopefully it helps in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, I think really, streamlining that, and I know too, like it's hard to create different content for every different platform, but that is what helps you grow. Your Instagram content should probably look a little bit different than your YouTube content, and your YouTube shorts should look a little different than your long form videos as far as from a growth perspective. But I think it's still really beneficial to have your name claimed on all of the platforms so that you can, have your same branding everywhere you go and have some sort of presence on all of them. But as far as focusing on the growth, most people who are, a one-man show are going to need to pick a platform and really stick to whatever is working for them to grow on that one spot, maybe two, if you really, really want to branch out.
Yeah, I have to give you credit though, because when you lectured me about my thumbnails, and then so I had an appointment with someone, and they're like, "Oh yeah, your thumbnails are getting better," and I was like, "Yeah." Sierra called me out on it, so I had to start putting more time into it, and yeah. So, but I think it's helped. I mean,
Well,
there's
I'm
way
here for
more.
anyone who needs, someone to nag. But if you aren't, trying to get 1% better on your what you're putting out, then are you really growing?
That's true. Yeah, I agree. So I can.
Your thumbnails are looking great.
Well, I wasn't. I was just not doing them because I was putting something out every day. So I was like, just put it out there, and then you kind of lectured me on it. And but but yeah, no, I think it helps. I mean, there's definitely way more interaction. I mean, people are commenting a lot more, But yeah, I also kind of want to talk about. I thought you went to a networking event. I thought you went to FinCon, but I guess that's, yeah, I know you mentioned that, so I guess that's later in October or in October sometime. So you did
Yeah,
go on a trip, but it
I did.
wasn't to FinCon. So why don't you talk about
No.
that a little bit?
I went to a baby shower, which was very different than FinCon. Um, but I I still had lots of great money lessons on on my baby shower venture. So I flew to Denver and first up I got my first Uber ride since 2017. So I have not taken an Uber since I was last in Las Vegas, I think was the last time I had taken one. So I needed an Uber ride to my Airbnb from the airport and I think I texted you it was like 28 miles and the Uber ride cost me about $55, which was more than I definitely paid in 2017. So, but gas prices are up there. So, uh, but I talked to the Uber driver on the way there and he said he averages between, 30 and $40 an hour. And he's been driving for 9 years. So he's doing well with his Uber business. Um, but yeah, I thought that was interesting to find out.
Is that his full-time job? Is that all he does?
Well, he didn't say. He
Oh,
said that he would like to work. Was hoping that he could work from home at some point, but right now he mostly does rides to and from the airport, and that's kind of what he averages. And he
well,
was
I
like,
don't
"You could
know.
do Uber."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about work from home. I mean, in his situation, like ideally would be something mobile, and then he
Yeah,
drives while he's waiting. He can work on his business or whatever he's doing, and kind of double dip on
double
making
dip,
paycheck.
right?
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. But yeah, you messaged. I mean, I saw you posted something. I think what was you had a question, right? Or when you were riding the Uber, or maybe you mentioned that it was like 2017 was the last time you
hmm
rode. So what was that? Did you have to tip him, or was it
There
included?
was, there isn't, yeah, there was an option to tip after the drive. The other thing that had happened is when I initially got to the airport and I looked up I hadn't gotten to the terminal or to the pickup spot yet where I wasn't out of the airport, but I looked at how long of a wait it was for an Uber and it was like 5 minutes or something and the estimate was like $42. And then by the time I got out of the airport it had increased the price to $75 for the ride because it was busier than normal. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't know we had fluctuating pricing on based on the demand on Uber now, but that's apparently the case. And so I waited about 10 minutes and I kept refreshing and it finally dropped back down to like $55. And that's when I went ahead and booked it. So that was something that I was just like, okay, so they're making more, the drivers are making more I mean, I don't know. I didn't ask him. I don't know if Uber is making more when the demand is higher or if the driver makes more off of that or if it's just a certain cut. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting that the price could nearly double just in a matter of 10 minutes.
Oh, so that's maybe something to think about when you land, right? Like, oh, let's take our time, not hurry to get where we need to go, maybe like, get our
Mhm.
bags and just wait until the rush leaves and then maybe the rates will go down. Huh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but like you also had some other interesting kind of, oh, you were networking too on the flight too, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I've flown a lot in the last year, honestly, more than I ever have. And typically, people get on the plane, they put their earbuds in, or they get their book out or something, and they put their hood up, and they're in their own zone. And I'm definitely the person who is like, I wish you would talk to me because I'm here by myself. And so I pestered the poor guy next to me. He got out his Nintendo Switch and he was going to play that. And he turned it on and the battery was dead. And when it we hadn't even taken off yet and he had flipped that open and I saw that the battery was dead and I was just like, "Oh no, you're gonna have to talk to me." And so I had already kind of prepped him a little bit that I was about to pester him for the entire ride. But and he was pretty shy, or at least so it seemed. And but after, I don't know, after probably the first 10 questions, I finally got out of him that he what he was in college for, and he does a lot of coding and game design and stuff like that. So we got to talk about that, and then talked about drop shipping and setting up a Shopify store. So I mean, I'm a great resource if you want to network with me on the plane. But you just have to be willing to have the conversation. So I talked to him about the back end of all of that, because that's stuff I have experience with. Um, and we had, if you follow me on X, you'll see that we had like matching outfits on. So I also got him to take a picture with me when I got off the plane, which I'm sure he was
Yeah,
excited for.
people should go look at it because he does not look happy at all. And I don't know how you got him to take a picture with you.
I know it was really, I well, for it was for a laugh, because I knew that my friends would find that funny. So I was just like, "Hey, I have one more favor to ask before you walk off."
And
And he was like,
but he was
"What?"
willing to, or you had to kind of like persuade him.
I asked him. I
Oh,
just said I
okay.
have a favor, and I said, "Would you take a photo with me?" And he said, "Sure."
Yeah,
And
he
so
does not look thrilled at all.
no, he wasn't. But you know what? I added him as a friend on Instagram, and he can message me anytime with if he wants business help, and I'd be happy to help him. So there you go. So I did network, even though it was not FinCon, and with my Uber driver, and with the guy next to me on the plane, and with my Airbnb hosts, because I stayed at my first Airbnb where it was like you stay in their room. No, you don't, not one where you have the whole place to yourself, but you stay in the room. And so I asked him a lot of questions about that, because we're trying to do part of our primary residence that way. Granted, ours is going to have like your own entrance, and you won't have to like have a shared space, but theirs was that way, and it was very interesting. I just asked them how that, how hosting guests that way goes, and their experience had been really well, and it obviously supplements their income and reduces their biggest expense, which is their mortgage payment. And so yeah, I got to talk to them too, and then obviously I got to hang out with my friend from college and do a baby shower.
Awesome. And that's not the end of the story though, right? You also had an experience with a
Oh
dinner
yeah.
or, whatever tip you guys had to pay or that was included.
Yes, so we went out to downtown Denver to a restaurant for dinner after the baby shower with just a handful of us. Not, it wasn't like a large group. And I know sometimes tips are included, when you are dining out with a group, we're usually like over 8 people or so, but there's just four of us. And the service charge was included, which was 22%. And I thought that was just, it was interesting. And I know we talked about this before. I don't know where they came up with 22% as the, ideal service charge. You had an option to tip on top of that if you wanted, um but yeah, they do pooled tips there, where part of the tips go to the cooks and are split evenly between all of the servers. So that was my probably one of my more recent experiences with any sort of tip being included. I did dine out at a Mexican restaurant not that long ago, where if you were picking up your order, they automatically included a 12% tip for the people who prepared. They said like for the people who got your order ready is what it said. So I guess you get a tip now for just putting the food like in the bag, the to go bag, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, well, for those out there, I mean, if you're wondering why we're talking about this too, we on a previous episode we did talk about the tipping culture that's going on in America and how where it's headed and how bad it's getting, and that's why it was funny that Sierra kind of mentioned to me that she had a 22% tip that was already included into their dinner. But were you notified ahead of time? Did it say it on the menu or anything, or
They
only at
did have
the
signs posted around the restaurant that it was that way. So which I had never been there before, but my friend had, and she had explained that they changed that pretty recently to be that way.
was it 22% pre-tax or before the tax or
Yeah, I think it was.
yeah.
I thought about that, but I didn't look at my ticket long enough to make sure, but I do think it was before the tax.
Yeah, somebody mentioned that in the comments on our other video that like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about, the tip that you leave. It's something like you said, people just look at the total and they actually, paying tip on the tax.
Hmm.
And Yeah, like I never thought about that until someone else mentioned that. But yeah, it's funny, man, that the taxes are, I mean, tips are everywhere now. Like you're saying, just
Yeah,
two.
and there's like less say in how much you tip. Like it's less customizable to the experience that you're having. So I feel like in that way, it makes it a little bit harder for even people who are doing a really great job to earn a really great tip because it kind of is like, well, I've already tipped 4 times today, and by the
Yeah.
time I got your great service, like I'm just trying to budget for all of this. And I know a lot of people are really feeling the um just fatigue of having to tip with every single transaction. And it is getting to be a lot.
Yeah, that's why you just stay home and order off of Amazon or so order online so you don't have to tip anywhere or make your own coffee at home, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a yeah, coffee's a hard one to I mean, I guess it's probably the least amount you're gonna tip though, because it's gonna be the
Yeah.
smallest purchase out of any kind of transaction that you have. Um, but yeah, I mean, I stopped drinking coffee a few weeks ago, so I don't even have that expense anymore.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been drinking coffee again because I stopped drinking energy drinks. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I was probably drinking like 3 or 4 monsters a day. So I said, you know, I'm gonna stop and drinking coffee again.
Wow, 3 or 4 monsters a day.
Yeah, it just a habit. It just became a habit, and I was, you know why? Because it's like cheaper to buy it in bulk, right? Like if you go to Costco or Sam's Club, so you're like, oh,
But
it's
it's not
cheap.
cheaper to drink it in bulk.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why, like, if I was to go to the gas station or whatever, and you buy it, it's like $4 or whatever,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, and then but then you see it at the Sam's Club or Costco, and it's like $35 for a case. And okay, so I had like cases at home because when it was on sale, so it'd just be so easy. Like, oh, there's a cold one, and then yeah, I was drinking like 3 or 4 a day. So I was like, ah,
Oh
I
my
better stop
gosh.
this. Yeah.
Do you drink water?
Yeah, that's why too. And I think that's why I cramped up at my
Oh
realtor
yeah,
Olympic thing
that's a
on Saturday.
hydration issue for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I pulled up lame. So, but yeah, this was fun again as usual. I mean, we kind of winged it a little bit because I thought you went to FinCon and we are going to talk about that, and then you told me you went to a baby shower, so kind of caught me off guard. But yeah, I
I'll
think
have I'll have really great information and notes when I get back from FinCon.
yeah, yeah, I can't wait. I'm also excited for when we go to the one rental at a time event in February. I think we're gonna have a lot of stuff from there. I'm hoping to maybe interview some people that I haven't met in person yet. So that should be fun.
Yeah, that'll be great. We'll be able to take content or take video for each other too, which will be great for social media.
Yeah, well, we'll do this again next week and maybe we'll figure out a better topic in advance. But I think it came out good.
Yeah, me too.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Have a good day.